What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky Rhett with you. And guys, I got to say, it was fun yesterday. Not only great games, incredible games, which we're going to get into on today's episode, but it was fun to actually be together. Rhett, I don't know the last time we were all together sitting there watching a football game. That was fun.
Yeah, it's kind of been bits and pieces of us here, throughout Thursdays and Sundays. And Bucky and I have been on the desk for NFL Game Day highlights throughout the playoffs on Sundays, which has been fun to kind of take one of the games and then push it forward into what we're going to see in the next one. And I think the one thing that we all kind of, witnessed in that Eagles-Rams game was something that kind of was the theme for the day, which were turnovers really hindering the losing team in this one. And we'll get into that throughout. But it was a good weekend of football. Some good, hard-fought ball, really all around.
It's funny, the playoffs change, but the way that you win doesn't. And the guys that don't make a lot of mistakes, the teams that don't beat themselves are the ones that continue to advance. And we saw it time and time again. We talk about turnovers being the number one deciding factor in who wins or loses games. It's blown assignments, it's silly penalties, things that you would tell a little league team. If you want to be really good, if you just do these things, you have a chance. And it's not so much teams winning games, it's teams losing games. And if you can avoid the implosion, you have a chance to advance. And that's what we really saw this weekend with all the teams that were able to advance.
Buck, you'll appreciate this because you know that I like baseball, and I always bring stuff back to baseball. Rhett hates baseball, so he's not going to participate in this particular analogy. But I was watching those games. Yeah, I was watching those games just thinking of like the Yankees in the World Series. Like, you think about all the effort it takes to get to this point, and then like the simple things. 2 hands on the ball in the pocket, right? When you've got a crowd around you, keep your left hand on the football. When you catch the ball in the middle of the field, you've got to cover up because you don't know where defenders are coming from. Yeah. Like that's like Aaron Judge dropping a fly ball. That's like them that's not like Garrett Cole not covering first base. Like, these are things that you learn in the earliest part of your football career. And it's amazing in the biggest moments on the biggest stage, Buck, that some of that stuff is what caused you to lose.
I'm so glad that you brought us back to baseball because one of my favorite quotes comes from Joe Madden, who won the World Series with the Chicago Cubs. And their theme that year they won it was do simple better. And literally in the postseason is if you just do the simple things better than your opponent, you're going to win. And you just talk about avoiding the unforced errors, the things that you really can control, because you can control all those things when it comes to ball security. You understand when you're in a crowd, cover up, put 2 hands on it, make sure you don't line up offsides, all those other things. And it's just amazing, and it'll take us to the Kansas City Chiefs when we eventually get there. People get mad at the Chiefs, but to me, the Chiefs have done what the Patriots did when they had their run. They've learned how to do those little things better than their opponent. And whatever they need to do on a given day, they do. And that's why they've been very, very hard to beat. And that's why they also excel in those one-score games. They don't give games away.
Rhett, I want to get to you, and we'll start here with the last game we saw, which was Baltimore-Buffalo, and we can jump into that. But you kind of connected the 2 games with the turnovers. So there's 5 turnovers combined for the teams that lost, and a clean sheet for the 2 teams that won
on Sunday.
On Sunday, I'm talking about the Sunday games. Yeah. So you also had in that game, I believe, let's see, Josh Allen in terms of passing yards, 127, Jalen Hurts, 128. Like, they are not going to light up the stat sheet, but they protected the football, and that was enough. Their defenses played great. But just starting with that one, Baltimore, Buffalo. Let's start first of all on the Baltimore side of things. Look, Mark Andrews, I don't know how we got to start there, right? Yeah. I mean, that's where you got to start.
Man, tough. I feel for Mark Andrews, right? This is what a roller coaster of a season. I remember it started out, he was, kind of an afterthought. Early in the year, and Isaiah Likely was catching, and then he caught fire and was a big reason.
He got 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, down the stretch. And then just to see it, kind of come to an end right there on a play like that, I think, talking about on the broadcast, he makes 999 times out of 1,000, But look, it was a hard play. It was not an easy catch, right? I'll say that when you're off balance a little bit. Right, and kind of falling backwards, but that's a play Mark Andrews makes when you're an all-pro and a Pro Bowler. That's the kind of play your team, needs you to make. But again, you come back to it also, like, he's also a reason why they're in that position. He also had a fumble earlier in the game that was tough, and
that resulted in 3 points going the other way. Those 5 points on 2 plays, really.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to boil it down like that because obviously you need to look at it in totality, but it's hard to separate that from the fact that those two plays were massive.
Yeah, the thing about it, the 2-point play, and I wonder when you look at Lamar Jackson and the windup, it almost reminded me of another baseball reference, a changeup. You know what I'm saying? So like you're sitting here readying for you're readying for the fastball, and you get the changeup or the knuckleball. And it's a minor thing, but it's major when you're falling back and you anticipate maybe a little more velocity. But I understand why Lamar Jackson did it because he didn't want to pull the string. He didn't want to blow the layup. And so in maybe trying to help Mark Andrews, maybe Lamar Jackson hurt him by taking a little off the ball, which is hard to say we're going to blame the quarterback for a drop pass.
No, we're going to catch the pass. We're going to catch the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to go back. I haven't had a chance to go back and see it yet, but you guys remember their loss against the Steelers? They ran their 2-point play with Lamar going left, and then he couldn't. I don't think somebody could get out. I think the tight end was trying to get out into the flat. They couldn't. They blew it up, and they tackled Lamar getting out. I meant Herbig might have been the one who kind of blew it up.
Yes.
But then it was just they got him on the move. They got him on the move left, and it got blown up. And it almost looked like it was going to be a quarterback sweep. Almost a tight play. But I go back and look at that play. But in this one, obviously they're going to the right, and I almost felt like all eyes were on Lamar, and they kind of sold out as if Lamar was going to run the ball. So you get him wide open, and I've been in that situation, Buck, exactly like you're talking about. And it's like he's so open. I don't want anything too firm, so it just kind of pulls it, just kind of pull it off a little bit. But he's got to catch the ball, man. He's got to catch the ball, and it was a heck of a drive. By Lamar and getting them right down the field. We were watching at the time, Buck. I don't know where you thought about it, but there was some conversation in the room when they had the 4th down. Rosenthal, let's see if Rosenthal confessed to this.
He tweeted.
But Rosenthal said, "Go." Did he tweet it? He said, "Oh, they should go for it." And I'm saying, no. If you go for it, there's one drive you lose. You kick the field goal. You have 3 opportunities left to win the game. You hold them without a touchdown, you win the game. You give them a touchdown, but you stop the 2-point conversion, you win the game. You give up the touchdown, the 2-point conversion, you still go to overtime with a chance to win the game. Like that gives you 3 opportunities to win the football game. You have to kick that field goal.
It's mitigating risk, right? In those moments, it's mitigating risk. Okay, so even at their worst, as you laid out, your 3 scenarios, we still go to overtime. I understood it because I sat there and I had to tweet compose. I couldn't get it out because I couldn't get my thoughts together. But I was like, okay.
Pressure. A lot of pressure.
On 3rd down, before they get to 3rd down, I was saying, okay, are you approaching this with 2 plays to score? Because the ball was at the 2. If they got to the 1 yard line, if they got to the 1 yard line, then I was like, okay, man, Josh Allen is unstoppable on quarterback power or whatever you go. But they lost yardage. And at that point, I was like, man, you got to kick it, right? Because
Absolutely.
You got to kick it. You got to take the 8-point advantage, and you got to say, hey, defense, go. Now, I didn't know that Lamar Jackson was go boop, 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 right down the field. I did not anticipate that.
The other thing, like there would have been about 1:30 left for Josh Allen, by the way, after the 2-point conversion. You know what I mean? This was not a foregone conclusion.
You might have had 4 opportunities to win that game then, if that's the case, because you could have won it in regulation and overtime or stop a touchdown or stop the 2-point. That was the right decision by McDermott. And he said it after the game. He's like, look, if we were right on the doorstep, I'd probably go, but not when we're, 2.5 to 3 yards. Like that's too much. So I thought that was smart on their end. Man, Derrick Henry, he had a couple runs in the 3rd quarter, but Buffalo, I thought, that's what they had to do. They had to sell out to try and take him away. And if you hold him under 85 yards, which they did, 16 for 84. And I was kind of, one of those people. I picked Buffalo to win, but I did think Derrick Henry had a chance to dominate that game just because Buffalo's not real big. But man, they played big. They penetrated. And as we've said, Buck, we've said this, we're talking about Derrick Henry for years. Like it's a very simple formula. It's not easy to execute, but it's simple in that you must take that runway and you must shrink that runway down, because if he gets a runway, you got no shot. And the only way you shorten a runway is with penetration.
Yeah, and I would give Buffalo a lot of credit because they played on the move. Their front line, it almost reminded me of watching like a college game. You remember when TCU played Michigan And there was a lot of conversation about Michigan was going to blow TCU over because they're playing like a 4-2-5 or a 3-3-5 defense. There's no way they can stop the big physical guy. And all the movement and the speed and the explosiveness up front created problems at times. However, the Baltimore Ravens had it rolling, and the fumble Andrews gave up that led to 3 points.
That was 8 minutes left.
I mean, they had it moving. They had run the football. They were throwing it. They had balance in those things. And the Buffalo Bills made key plays and key moments that halted drives. And that's ultimately the difference. The 3 turnover margin is why the Buffalo Bills go on and the Baltimore Ravens are packing it up.
Rhett, by the way, Zay Flowers not being in that ball game, I think that's a big deal. I had some people get upset with me because I said it on TV that, like, gosh, they really missed him. And I got the everybody has injuries comment, and I'm like, look, we talked about it. We said that Detroit missed Hutchinson. Like, we've talked about people. I'm not saying that's the sole reason they didn't win the game, but that would have been nice for him to have him out there. But I thought that was legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, like, this was, when you take the turnovers out of it, this was a hard-fought game on both sides. Like, it was not just like and this was not the Ravens team that forgot about the run game, in the postseason. They still ran the ball. Justice Hill ran the ball. They ran, what's interesting is it was really feast or famine for the Ravens on offense. If it wasn't a chunk play, it wasn't happening, both in the pass game and the run game. Like, all but 50 of their yards
came 4 or 5 drops. I mean, because Andrews had 2. Derrick Henry had 2. It's just a lot of self-inflicted wounds, man.
Yeah, it really was. And look, but the defense played phenomenal. Like, they keep the Bills to under 300 total yards. I don't think you could ask for much more than that.
No,
I mean, it was win that game. Yeah,
there's a quick turnover. Story of the game. Story of the game. Go ahead, Buck.
I will say this because there's always going to be the conversation about Lamar Jackson. I think we have to touch on it, like the narrative that goes on about Lamar Jackson in the postseason. Now, I think from a personal standpoint, Lamar Jackson will walk away from this game with confidence, knowing that he can play well in those big moments. He hadn't played well in one of these divisional round or AFC championship games. I feel like after those early turnovers, he played pretty well, capped off at that final drive. I think he has to figure out a way how to calm himself down, because once he calmed down in the floor of the game, he was able to play really well. To me, it's his emotional control at the outset that they have to work on to allow him to get past these moments.
Yeah, and I would just, the last thing I would say on this game, like, to me, a lot of the way this game ended up being played out was what happened at the borderline of the first and second quarter. The interception, it didn't end up hurting them because Buffalo punted it away after the pick, but obviously it ruins an opportunity for you to go down there and score. But then, they go down and then on the next drive, they fumble, right? You get the fumble, Buffalo recovers, scores a touchdown. Then on the Ravens' next drive, they get all the way down to the Buffalo 8 and have to kick a field goal. And then Buffalo comes back and scores a touchdown, and you're sitting there and it's 21 points. And that second quarter, that first to second quarter, really kind of determined to me the way that the rest of the game ended up being played.
Yep. Yeah, that was crucial. Let's get to the other game that we saw yesterday, which was another great game. Came down to the very end with the Rams ball in their hands, chance to go down there, win. Let me just, Rhett, I'll tee up on this one first. But if I told you before the game, Matthew Stafford's going to throw for 324, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Jalen Hurts is only going to throw for $128 with no touchdowns. Kyron Williams is going to have 106 yards on the ground. Your defense is going to compile 7 sacks. You sit there and think, gosh, we got a pretty good shot at going in there and beating the Philadelphia Eagles in this one. But the problem being Saquon Barkley, major problem. Putting the ball on the ground twice, major problem.
Yeah. Stafford once, Kyron, and the Kyron Williams one is really tough because you just got the safety, right? You just sacked Jalen Hurts, who looks like, a wounded animal back there. He can't move around with the knee or whatever it was that ended up bothering him. And they sack him down there. You get the ball back. You're within a point. And now you turn it right back over to them. They return it all the way deep, into your own territory, and the air just goes out of the balloon for a minute. Now it came back late, like a little bit too late, as you go under 4 minutes. They made a heck of a push and really had an opportunity there, if not for Jalen Carter, who was an absolute beast as he's been, just dominating inside, sacking Stafford on the 3rd and 2, turning it into a 4th and 11, and then causing pressure again to force a quick throw from Stafford. that ends up ending the game and ending the season. And that's what it came down to. Like, thinking about that game for me, obviously with the turnovers, and that's a turnover on downs there, but the car crash of the ending. Like, it's 4th and 11. You think you're going to have a shot to go in here and win this game. And then, bam, that's it.
Yeah.
So, playoff football's hard, Buck. That is hard.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is hard. And it's the emotional swings that you must handle, like being able to deal with the ups and downs and those things. And if you're the LA Rams, you certainly feel like you let one slip out of your hands. You had the game under control, and look, you have the safety. And after the safety, I was like, oh, man, this is all bad for the Philadelphia Eagles. You're now giving Matthew Stafford the ball back. He has an opportunity to go down the field, and the pressure that they would have had Jalen Hurts being down at home, all that angst and anxiety. But the fumble, you scoop it up and put you in a position. But I'm going to say this, man, the Eagles have to learn how to cash in these chances in the red zone. Like, this was a game where they had a chance to go in and just punch it in. Penalty backed them up, and just the field goal fest. And at some point, you can't keep trading 3s for 7s. You're going to end up on the short end of the stick, and they were able to get away with it, but they're not going to be able to win in the championship game if they don't cash in on those tight red zone opportunities.
You know what's interesting, though, about the Eagles, man, is I feel like every week, and it's not just, what our conversation is here, it's everywhere. I just hear people, man, everybody hates the way the Philadelphia Eagles win football games. And I'm sitting here going, well, okay, well, if we throw out Jalen Hurts getting knocked out in the first quarter against Washington, right? And by the way, if Devontae Smith catches the ball, they still win that game. That the last time they lost a football game was in September. So this team is not even clicking. They're not even clicking. So they don't lose football games.
So what you're saying they are the NFC version of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they were clean. They were clean in this game. They haven't always been clean.
No, but
like you say,
in terms of
and things like that. But they know how to win games.
They know how to win games. If you leave it hanging in the balance, they'll find a way to do it. And we can talk about the dysfunction in the locker room and are they all on the same page? But you're right. At the end of the weekend, they always put a dub in the win column. And that's what
let me ask you this. One of the things we've always said about the Kansas City Chiefs, and we've said it about other teams, championship teams, and we can go through all of them. Von Miller, notoriously with the Denver Broncos. What do we say about those championship teams on defense? They have a closer.
Oh, they can close it out.
Chris Jones is you know what? Jalen Carter?
Closer.
He closed that game.
Nolan Smith was part of it too.
Nolan Smith was excellent, but Jalen Carter wrecked that game. He closed it.
How about that? Yeah, first with Jalen Carter. Like Jalen Carter being everything that we talked about. And it's one of the reasons why we need to put the pencil down once we get the calendar flips, because everyone loved him, the player at Georgia. You worried about the character, but the player on tape, there weren't many questions about what he can be. He has been exactly what he was at Georgia in terms of a disruptive force at the point of attack. You've seen Vic Fangio unleash him, and the bigger the moment, the better he plays. But how about Nolan Smith? Because there was a lot of controversy about Nolan Smith being picked, where he was picked, and what the position was going to be. Give the Eagles credit for having a vision for how he's going to play, but really give Vic Fangio credit for finding a way to really unlock the potential, because Nolan Smith has been terrific. He's really been great throughout this playoff run.
I would just call up the tweet that Jack Andrade sent out, and because a couple of guys, right? Because it was Nolan Smith was, I think, DJ, your best value in the first round.
Yes.
In terms of where you had him, where he was
right?
picked.
That was 2023.
Yeah.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah.
So Nolan Smith, I had as my 13th player, and he was the 30th pick.
Yeah.
Great. And you know who my comp was? Ironically. Hassan Reddick.
I was going to say Sweat. Yeah.
Nice.
Stand up, juicy, change of direction. He's got wrist control. He can bend and close, plays with burst. I made a point in here about just like an effort thing, which, I always think is a big deal. They had a fake punt called by Auburn. And when I was watching that game, and he freaking stuffed it, which was like, okay, this guy's got all this athletic ability and explosiveness, but he's also an instinctive football player. He's needed to play. He's needed to get out there. He'd missed some time with injuries, and now you're seeing a chance that he's got to play more and more and more. And he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he is a savage, man.
Yeah. And then Moro Jumbo was the other one.
Yeah.
Jumbo?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the last picks of the draft, and I think you had him in the right around 100. So they got some good value there.
What does juicy mean? I've never used that in the scouting term. What does juicy mean? I just want to make sure. I've never used juicy. It's a new term for me, so I just need to figure out how I can put it in my notebook.
If you say like a receiver's got juice. Okay, like there's burst and explosiveness, but like everything juicy that Nolan Smith does, like as someone in the front seven, everything's just got a lot of juice to it. Like there's just speed and twitch and explosiveness no matter where he's going. He's just got he's a juicy dude.
I like juicy. You know what you've been doing? You've been hanging with those baseball scouts for too long. I'm gonna restrict you from texting with the Padres.
No, I need more words. I just sit here and feel like notes all day long trying to find new terms.
I feel like our guys from way back would be like, DJ, we've never used that in a report.
Nope. I'll tell you what. I'm always looking for new ways to say things. I'll be honest with you. Like just to nerd out for a second. Like there's lots of scouting phrases that I've heard and picked up since I left as a scout. Like two of my favorites over the last 10 years. This is totally off topic, but stopping power as a tackler. I'd never used that when I was writing, but I heard it for the first time. I was like, when I hear a term and I know exactly what it looks like, that's a great scouting term, stopping power. Yeah, and then the other one was, and this I think might have been from Les Snead, was he said that with the Rams, they focus on guys who are grounded through the catch.
That's Puka.
And that's Puka. That's all their guys that they've brought in, which Buck is someone who's played the position. When you hear that, you're like, oh yeah, because the guys are confidence in their hands. They run through the ball. They don't leave their feet to try and cradle it, corral the ball.
Yeah.
I
need to get my sons grounded through the catch point a little bit.
There you go. Yeah, guess what? You're also way more likely to break tackles when you have your feet in the ground. But anyways, those are nerdy scout topics there. Anything else on that game, Buck, you want to hit on before we take a break here?
Yeah, we're good.
No, we're good on that one.
All right, well, let's work from that Saturday night game. Probably the most surprising outcome of the weekend. Rhett, I got to tell you, man, this is what happens with Bucky. He goes out and he makes strong takes. She's not shy. He puts a strong opinion out there. And I think he ranked quarterback somehow, and he had Jayden Daniels up high in said ranking. So I get hit. I get to go get your boy. Your boy he's crazy. He's lost it. What is Bucky saying? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're even talking about. What is going on? And then I finally started doing some homework, investigative work. I'm like, no, Jayden Daniels is legit, and Bucky put it out there. And then all of a sudden, Jayden Daniels goes and does his thing. And Rhett, you'll be surprised to know, none of those same people were telling me to come get my guy anymore.
Well,
no. So Rhett, to take you back. So DJ was out. It was Lance and I hosting the pod. And we did a thing called playoff tiers with the quarterbacks. And so tier one are your elite guys. And so it was Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. And then I threw Jayden Daniels in there. Now,
spice up a little bit.
Yeah, spice it up a little bit. So Lance was like, Lance was like, whoa, this is before the playoffs start. And people are like, how can you put him in tier one before he even plays a playoff game? Well, that's the fun in projecting. Like if I want to wait after seeing him, like anybody can do that. Like that's what we're projecting. Like, and so the thing is, and I'll say this, like he is even beyond, and it's also funny, like when you go back in your notes and you recall certain conversations that you had with people before, and they gave you a different answer on Jayden Daniels, and then you talk to him now at Arizona State, they're like, oh yeah, we always do. And I'm like, they celebrated when he left. They celebrated. And now he's the one that's doing the celebration. I will say his poise, his confidence, his composure, on top of the skills that he brings, he epitomizes what you look for in a franchise player. And I can only relate it to my time in Green Bay when Brett Favre was in the middle of his 3 MVP run, and how on defense we felt when we had number 4 on the team. We were like, if we can just get the ball back, he'll figure it out. And the conversations that you hear from the Commanders players are very similar to that. He gives us hope. We believe we can win because that dude is special. When you have veteran players like Bobby Wagner and older players saying that about the young guy, that's when you buy in, because the players will tell you real quickly if a guy has it, he definitely has the it factor that you need.
Hard to argue with that. And I think truly when you look at that team and you look at the way that he has elevated everyone around him at such. I mean, that is a team that, look, they're a good defense. Dan Quinn's a heck of a coach. I think Cliff Kingsbury's done a really nice job of kind of managing the ebbs and flows of offensive production. Whereas when he was with the Cardinals, it felt like, man, second half, like you started falling off the cliff, and they didn't find that plateau again. But it felt like this year, this team has found that plateau. And like you look at, personnel. I mean, we talk about the offensive line a bunch. I mean, Terry McLaurin, I love, but I mean, like De'Ami Brown has come alive. Like they are finding ways. And I think Jayden is the catalyst there. He is that good to where he is truly, the rising tide that is lifting all ships here in this Washington Commanders franchise. And I think he deserves a ton of credit for that beyond, what his special play is. I think it's inspiring for those guys.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a tangible thing to me.
I went back and was just trying to go back to the college stuff because it was just, I didn't have words for what he was doing. Like the way he was playing and the way he's played, truthfully, of just the poise to go along with the ball placement, the accuracy. He is like, to me, I think I tweeted out, like, I've never seen anybody process that fast, that young. Yeah. Like he's got like some Joe Burrow type processing stuff, which I don't say that lightly, which is incredible. And so I was going back through and I'm like, it's just so weird. He's played so much football in college. And we talked about that with him and Bo Nix both having great years because they both played so much. But it wasn't like this just steady Eddie climb. It was okay. Then that his first year at LSU, a little bit better. And then all of a sudden just explodes in his last year. And I was thinking back, and I don't know, because we're all somewhat of similar age, like when we used to have to mow the lawn, we had an old lawnmower. And you had to pull it, right? So you got to pull that string, and then you might have to pull it 3 or 4 times and it doesn't start. And then finally, like that 5th time you pull it, it starts. Works great. But yeah. I was thinking of that as an analogy with these players because they don't get much chance to fail in the NFL. We move on. They're done. They're not good enough. So it's like, man, in college, playing all those snaps, all those years in college, you got time to get the lawnmower started. And once it starts, it's good. And it's like that's the value in guys staying and playing extra time in college is that, man, they figured out, because once you figure it out, you're good. But it's hard to figure it out at the NFL level, man, if you haven't had time to do that. That's my point, Buck.
No, I'm with you. And the experience of being able to go through those ups and downs. And we'll talk about Jayden Daniels, but I think you always have to include Bo Nix in that conversation because he's another one who had all of that time at college to find his game, go through the ups and downs, and then find his way to the other side. And we saw the success that he was able to have as a rookie. We've said this, and Red, I think you've been on, we said it, like we kind of like our quarterbacks to come into the league with some scuffs on them. Like we don't want the brand new shoes that are just completely polished and they don't have any. I need them scuffed up a little bit because it's going to give me a chance to maybe get through the adversity in the first year a little quicker. And for Jayden Daniels, he was able to get through that lull that coincided with his ribs being hurt. But he got through that period, and he has been great when they've needed him to be great. Yeah.
And look, I think that, again, like what we're talking about him in being a player that elevates, you look at other rookies that have gone to where he's taking this team to the championship round. I mean, like they had dominant defenses. And while Washington's good, they're not.
Those quarterbacks on that list that we have on our chat right now were not the driving force of their team. No. They were not the lead actor. Nope. They were supporting characters. And this is a totally different deal.
This is unlike anything we've seen, truly, because none of us would sit here and say, if you look pound for pound, player for player on that Washington roster, well, they have played well together. That did not look like an NFC Championship game roster.
No.
Just to be fair. I mean,
No, it's incredible. And look, he took down the number 1 seed on the road and did it convincingly. And again, part of the story of the week, Buck, is turnovers. It's been the theme through a bunch of these games. You get the turnover margin. I don't know, 5-0. That seems like that's going to be problematic if you're Detroit when you turn the ball over 5 times. Yeah. But do you? We talked about this because it looks like they're both going to get head coaching jobs. Ben Johnson, the OC, is going to get one. Aaron Glenn's going to get one, and they're both fantastic coaches, fantastic candidates. But we had said on here that look, you might think I'm not distracted at all. There's no issues here. The way that these organizations and buildings work, like it is an obsession. They work long hours to get ready each and every week. You can't tell me that doesn't have an impact, man. When you're having to do interviews for, your dream jobs, the job you've coveted since you were a kid, how could you not be a little bit distracted on that stuff?
Oh, yeah, you can't fully focus. I don't care what you are, because you're playing different scenarios in your head. Who am I bringing with me? What do I want? What am I looking for? You have to have some knowledge of the other roster. I mean, if you have multiple interviews, 3 or 4 other rosters, and how you would build those teams, that's a lot of brain space that's being occupied when you really need to be focusing on the game plan. It's unfortunate that they didn't play at their best, but look, it has to play a small part in why maybe those teams on both sides of the ball didn't look the way they've looked the entire season.
Yeah. By the way, I think Rap Sheet just was talking about Aaron Glenn is interviewing for the second time in person with the Jets, and then he's got the Saints right after that. Feels like
he's getting one of those. Yeah. He's getting one of those gigs, and good for him. He's a good football coach. But does this feel? I don't want to say window closing. I think that's a little early on that one. But you also have your time when this is your best shot, when you have home field advantage all the way throughout, when you have continuity on your coaching staff. I know the defense had been besieged with injury, but man, that was still. This is you got to beat. You needed to beat a rookie quarterback, and then you would have been at home against a hobbled Jalen Hurts for a chance to go to a Super Bowl. I mean, that it's hard to see them having a better opportunity than the one that they had this year, which sucks for the Lions.
Yeah, you can almost make the argument that you feel now. Look, offensively, they've got a great young core, and that's the case. In a youngish quarterback in the prime of his career, you feel pretty good about that. But you can almost make the argument that you look at where the Rams are, and they're feeling pretty good about that young group, especially on defense that they've got that are going to continue to get better in terms of window, being open. The problem is, how much longer are they going to go with Stafford? I think is obviously the biggest difference there.
Yeah, I would say also Detroit has a bunch of good players on rookie deals too. They haven't had to pay yet, so they're still talented. They got to make sure they fill the right spots here with the coaches they're getting ready to lose. Buck, Houston, Kansas City. We've touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's just it's a clean brand of football, man. It's not always the most aesthetically pleasing, but the defense. This is a defensive team, and that's why I've said this used to be an explosive offense with an opportunistic defense. Now it's an explosive defense with an opportunistic offense.
Yeah, and we could talk about the defense. 8 sacks, George Karlaftis and company really being able to get after C.J. Stroud, disrupt the rhythm, dominated the game on that standpoint. Old coaches always talk about this. I'm sure we all played coming up where the coach would say, hey, there are 3 phases in the game. For us to win, you got to win 2 of them. And the Kansas City Chiefs won 2 phases. They won defense and they won special teams. As much as I want to talk about their defense playing lights out, they won the game because of their special teams and what they were able to do. 63-yard kickoff return right out the gate. They then benefited from a missed field goal, a missed PAT. They blocked the field goal. I mean, all the things that Dave Tope and his units do, they win in the margins. And we've seen this time and time again. They understand what's required to win, and they're willing to make those plays in those areas to win the game. Hats off to the Chiefs for continuing to do what they do, win.
Yeah, and it still though feels like this is a team that's vulnerable. This is a team. While as sound as they are, in some of those areas that we're talking about, the simple areas, if the team on the other sideline can also do those things, it feels like more often than not they're going to have a chance to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. The Houston Texans had every opportunity to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, obviously don't let up a 75-yard kick return on the opening kick. And special teams was a big reason why they were unable to get it done. Missed field goals. I'm not gonna bash Kami Fairbairn too much for missing a 55-yarder, but extra point, one that's a little bit closer. Block. You gotta find. I get it. The weather's tough. It's tough conditions, but it's tough on the other side too. But ultimately, this was not a game where the Texans were outclassed, even very shorthanded. DJ, I didn't see it that way with the way this thing ended up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the thing about the playoffs is it always, and I saw it with the Chargers doing their game against the Texans, is that your warts have a way of appearing at the worst time. Yeah. And when I studied that Texans team getting ready for that first playoff game, man, I'm like, gosh, if they get behind, they are awful at communicating games, twists, and blitzes up front. Like they get
that
more free run throughs. And it was like, well, here we are. And Buck, I don't want to. I hate it when we do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So
yes,
when you blanket statement. Here we go. Blanket statement. How many times have we seen the Shanahan offense when they get down and there's no illusion of run and it's drop back pass? They're done.
It's a big problem, and it's one of the things they always play from ahead. The offense is built to play from ahead, where they can dictate the terms, where they can get you seduced by the run action and then throw it down the field. We have seen that time and time again. And when they are behind, they don't have a true drop back component to the passing game. And so, not that it's a narrow path to victory for them, but the game plan and the game mode, the game script can't go awry because it's really hard for them to climb their way back into it just because the playbook isn't built for them to be from behind. So it's something that they have to talk about, something they have to work on. It's certainly something that has popped up not only in Houston, but with other teams that run iterations of this offense.
Guys, 4 of their 8 sacks came in the final 4 minutes of the game. You want to talk about closers?
Yeah.
You want to talk about the blitz being on CJ Stroud like that, to your point, DJ, not being able to communicate where that stuff is coming from? Yeah, obviously credit to Spags for understanding and taking advantage of some of those weaknesses that you're talking about. But CJ didn't have a chance on a couple of those. Like Justin Reed's in his face mask like this. You know, on one of the, I mean, it was there's no winner on that.
Yeah, I think that's why it's also very important, and we'll get into tomorrow's episode. We'll start previewing the games going forward. But just one thing on that is to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I think you have to get on them early and hang on. I think that's the way to beat them. I don't think you want to be in a trail position with Spags and Chris Jones and all these different blitz packages they're going to throw at you. And Karlaftis has really started to emerge and be a really good player. So look, Kansas City, they might just ugly their way to a 4th Super Bowl here. I mean, that's what they're doing, man. There's something to be said for it. I always just come back to Bucky's favorite line, winners win. I mean, that's
they just find a way to get to the winner's circle.
Yeah, that's what
time and time again. It is crazy.
Do it. All right. Well, this is fun. Looking back on these ball games, we have another episode coming up tomorrow where we will look ahead at the conference championship games. I want to also, real quick, before we get out of here, because we went long on this, just a quick, give me 30 seconds on how in the world Notre Dame shocks the world tonight. Brett, go ahead.
They don't allow Ohio State's defensive line to wreck shop like they've been doing throughout the entire college football playoff. Like, I know we look at Jeremiah Smith and Will Howard and Travion Henderson, but to me it's JT Tuimoloau, it's Jack Sawyer, it's Tyleek, it's Ty Williams, that whole crew. If they are the dominant position group in this game, Ohio State wins going out, because that means Jeremiah Love's not running the ball all over the place and Riley Leonard's getting pressured and sacked and hit. And that's going to be a recipe for disaster. So to me, it's about Ohio State's defensive line up front, which has been absolutely dominant throughout the course of these last 3 games for them.
Yeah, for me, I may be the lone wolf in this because I actually like Notre Dame's chances of pulling this off. And I think the experience that they've had in playing Notre Dame, playing Ohio State before, remember, they played Marvin Harrison Jr., and they were one of the few teams at the time that played man-to-man against Ohio State. I don't believe they're going to fear Ohio State like some teams do. I think they're going to match up, they're going to line up, and they're going to try and make this a Will Howard game. They're going to dare the quarterback to make enough big plays to win. And if Notre Dame is able to just cobble together a semblance of offense where they can control the game and just get it to the 4th quarter, I feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to lock up and play on the outside. I'm pretty confident.
How many carries, if Notre Dame wins the ball game, how many carries for Riley Leonard in this ball game, Buck?
Oh, I think we're using him like this is a Tim Tebow game. This is a Tim Tebow game.
I was going to say 12 to 15.
Yeah.
Oh, this is and we've seen this because it was funny.
Lay it all out.
The last time. He is going to take the direct snap and he's going to run power and ISO and all those things. I think you need no stone unturned. Yeah, I think 15 plus is what we're shooting for.
Yeah, I think they got to turn Will Howard over to win the ball game, though. I think they've got to turn him over a couple times, and maybe that's what they do. Maybe they just go nose to nose, lock him up, and make him make throws. Yeah.
Either they're gonna blow us out, or we're gonna win it. But like playing zone and letting Will Howard have whatever he wants, that's not the recipe. No risky, no biscuit.
That was the line. I think it was. I remember who did the report, but maybe it was Jay Glazer in the pregame. But he was talking to Dan Quinn. And he's like, how do you feel about today? And he's like, we're going to take our swings. I'll tell you that much. I was like, okay. And they did. They were going for it on 4th downs. And just like, there is no fear in this dojo. We might lose, but we aren't going in there tippy-toed and scared. All right. We're looking forward to that ball game. We'll recap that later on in the week as well. That's going to do it for us. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. See you next time right here on Move the Sticks.